صل على محمد و آل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد و آل محمد. اعوذ بالله من الشیطان الرجیم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحیم و صلی الله علی سیدنا و نبینا و حبیب قلوبنا ابی القاسم المصطفى محمد و علی آله الطیبین الطاهرین و لعنة الله علی اعدائهم اجمعین من الآن الی قیام یوم الدین ولا حول ولا قوة الا بالله العلی العظیم. فقد قال الله الحکیم فی محکم کتابه اعوذ بالله من الشیطان الرجیم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحیم. یا ایها الذین آمنوا اطیعوا الله و اطیعوا الرسول و اولی الامر منکم. صلوات دومی رو ختم بفرمایید. اللهم صل علی محمد و آل محمد. من انشاءالله صلوات سوم رو به عنوان عرض تسلیت خدمت ابا عبدالله الحسین and اهل البیت and آل الله and all شهدا of کربلا و تمامی عزیزانی که در راه ابا عبدالله الحسین این مجالس امام حسین رو برپا داشتن، صلوات سوم رو قریب‌تر ختم بفرمایید. من انشاءالله صلوات چهارم رو به خدمت حضرت صاحب العصر و الزمان عرض بکنیم که در واقع میزبان اصلی عزاهای عاشورا و عزاهای ماه محرم هستند. اللهم صل علی محمد و آل محمد. و انشاءالله یادی هم باشه از مرحومین و مرحومات، تمامی عزیزانی که زمانی پیش ما بودند الان یادشان در بین ما هست، با صلوات پنجم شما به دنبال آن سوره فاتحه. اللهم صل علی محمد جمیعا سلام علیکم. الحمدلله، خدا رو شاکریم برای این توفیق عالی که در مجلسی به نام مجلس امام الحسین شرکت بکنیم. عزیزان فرمودن 5 دقیقه رو به زبان فارسی خدمت عزیزان باشیم و بعد از اون همون منوال همیشگی برنامه رو به زبان انگلیسی ادامه بدیم. در خصوص 5 دقیقه، همونطور که عزیزان میدونن، شروع منبر و ختم منبر در 5 دقیقه واقعا یکی از مشاکل، حالا بگیم واقعا سخت هست. این است که بنده اجمالاً چند تا نکته رو در رابطه با خود روز عاشورا خدمت عزیزان عرض میکنم. همونطور که برادر بزرگوار فرمودن، روز عاشورا روز سه‌شنبه هست. در خصوص روز عاشورا ما روایات زیادی داریم نسبت به این که نهی شده از کار و تلاش و حتی تحصیل علم در روز عاشورا. به چه مقدار؟ به مقداری که میفرمایند که اگر شما حتی در روز عاشورا مسائل و مواردی که نیاز ضروری خانه هم هست، اگر در اون روز اونها رو خرید بکنید، اونها ختم به شوم میشوند، یعنی برای شما هیچ برکتی رو به همراه ندارن. و از طرف یک سری روایات داریم که به ما میگویند که تمامی کار و کسبه و تمامی تحصیل علم رو تعطیل کنید و تمام روز عاشورا رو به مصیبت و حزن و عزای ابا عبدالله الحسین مشغول باشید. خب ما الان چند روز داریم تا روز سه‌شنبه؟ همه این فرصت رو پیدا میکنن که حداقل یک روز رو اون هم با نیت انجام بدیم، نه صرف این که چیزی میشنویم، نه، با نیت انجام بدیم که ما این روز عاشورا رو انشاءالله با نیت قربتن الله آف میگیریم، ارزم شما که مرخصی میگیریم و تمام روز رو برنامه ریزی کنیم که حداقل مشغول به چه کاری باشیم؟ به خوندن مصائب و ذکر و عزای ابا عبدالله الحسین. کتاب‌های مقاتل هست، مجالس عزا هست، نه تمام منبرهایی که در واقع آنلاین هست، طرق مختلف وجود داره برای این کار. اینجا هم که خب برنامه خودشون رو دارن. این اول قضیه. پس چی شد؟ برای روز عاشورا حتی المقدور کار رو تعطیل کنیم. 1، اگر دانشجو هستیم درس رو تعطیل کنیم. 2 و 3، تمام کارهایی که برای اون روز هست رو سعی کنیم روزهای قبل انجام بدیم. مختص خود روز عاشورا کارهای دنیوی رو تعطیل بکنیم. مطلب بعدی خود شب عاشورا هست. همونطور که میدونید شب عاشورا یکی از شب‌های بسیار عزیز هست و حتی در بعضی روایات اشاره به احیا نگه داشتن اون شب هست. منتها احیا به چه امری؟ عزای ابا عبدالله الحسین یکی از اوامر هست. اوامر دیگه‌ای که روش خیلی ارزش که تایید شده در کتاب مفاتیح الجنان و یا زاد المعاد هم پیدا میشه، نمازهای مختلفی هست که در شب عاشورا وارد شد. خب عزیزان هم مستحضر هستن که در شب عاشورا حال و هوای اصحاب ابا عبدالله و خود امام حسین خیلی متفاوت بود و اصلا دلیلی که جنگ رو به روز بعد انداختن برابر فرموده خود حضرت هم همین بوده که اونجایی که شمر جوشن اون اماننامه رو میاره، حضرت امام حسین به قمر بنی هاشم میفرمایند که برو ببین که کارش چیست، امرش چیست. صحبتی رخ میده بین شمر و حضرت قمر بنی هاشم و حضرت نامه رو میارن یا اون اماننامه رو میارن و خدمت ابا عبدالله الحسین عرض میکنن. امام حسین اماننامه رو که رد میکنه هیچ، میگوید یک شب دیگر برای ما مهلت بگیر. چرا؟ لانی احب الصلاة و تلاوت القرآن، برای اینکه من دوست دارم نماز خواندن و تلاوت قرآن را. پس حداقل این یک پیام رو ما از عاشورا با خودمون نگه داشته باشیم که تمام این عزایی که ما هر ساله به پا می‌داریم و در واقع این خاطره‌ای که از عاشورا به یاد میاریم برمیگرده به چه مبحثی؟ این که ما باید دینمون رو به طور کامل انجام بدیم. اینطور نشه که عزای امام حسین بیاد و مثلا فرض کنید نماز صبح ما رو قضا بکنه، یا عزای امام حسین بیاد و سبب بشه ما حق الناس های متعددی برای این عزا مرتکب بشیم. چون طبیعتا تو مجلس امام حسین که میایم، مجلس عمومیه، هر کسی حقی داره، هر فردی حقی داره، رعایت حقوق واجبه، از عزاداری امام حسین مستحبه. هیچ وقت مستحب نمیتونه امر واجب رو کنار بزنه. یعنی من نمیتونم حق کسی رو ضایع بکنم. برای چی؟ برای اینکه میخوام فرض بفهمم یک امر مستحبی رو انجام بدم. نه، پله پله، واجبات سر جای خودش، ترک محرمات سر جای خودش، مستحبات و مکروهات هم سر جای خودش. درست شد؟ پس این پیامی که ما انشاءالله میتونیم از روز عاشورا داشته باشیم. امیدواریم که خداوند تبارک و تعالی به همه ما توفیق عزاداری حقیقی و در واقع اسامی ما جز لیست عزاداران حقیقی ابا عبدالله حسین قرار بده و انشاءالله زیارت حرم ششگوشه‌اش در این دنیا و شفاعتش در دنیای آخرت رو برای همه ما رقم بزنه و همه ما رو بر سر سفره خاصه حضرت در این ایام و انشاءالله در عالم بعد از مرگ مهمان بداره. به برکت صلوات بر محمد و آل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. So alhamdulillah, we are thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for these blessings of being part of the Majlis of Imam Hosain. As we started the series of topics for the previous nights, we started talking about the matter of Islamic lifestyle and how important of a role it plays within our life, right? So as I mentioned, we are living in a society in which a lot of times we see generations, especially the next generations, they come up with this challenge of dealing with dual personality or dual identity, right? And this challenge has become so vast and so has spread it so much in a way that we can say it's actually an epidemic, challenge. So in order to overcome this one, we have to go back and we have to take a look at the Islamic lifestyle that we have, and we try to come up with the best solution for living in the societies such as the societies of the West. So we started a series of discussions regarding this, and we tried to gain benefit from the movement of Imam Hosain, and we tried to gain ma'arifah from the companions of Abu Abdullah Hussein in this regard. So on these discussions will lead to this point that what are the root causes, that actually made this conflict happen. We know that about 30,000 people were on one side and about 72 people on the other side. Why is it that every time when we go back and we find this situation in which haqq is facing batil, in which truth is facing untruth, right? We always find a few number of people on the side of haqq, and we find the majority on the side of batil. What is the root cause of it? What makes this decision so hard? Is it because people do not recognize haqq? That could be one reason. Or is it number two, they recognize haqq but they just don't decide to follow or actually show their support for the haqq, right? Or is it becomes, it is because it becomes so confusing that they constantly make a mistake in understanding what is the true example of haqq, right? So I gave you 2 reasons on the previous 2 nights. Tonight I'm going to talk about the 3rd reason. And this 3rd reason is something that got started from the early days of Islam, and it continues today, till today as we speak of. What is the 3rd reason? The 3rd reason, we call it innovation in religion. In Arabic, we call it bid'ah, right? So what does it mean? Bid'ah means when we bring up something and we relate it to the religion in a form of religions, in the form of religious teachings. I say, for example, Islam says this, narration says this, Quran says this, and I put my own words instead of the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I put my own words instead of the words of Rasulullah. I put my words instead of the word of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam al-Hassan al-Mujtaba, Abu Abdullah al-Husayn, so on and so forth, right? And we have this quite a lot when we go back in a lot of stuff that we actually practice, right? As the brother was mentioning, the a'mal of the day of Ashura, for example, or a lot of stuff that we do on daily basis, right? There is a difference. Sometimes we have an act which comes from a culture, so Iranian culture, Afghan culture, Arabic culture, Iraqi culture, Syrian culture, right? That's a different story. Sometimes we say it's part of our culture, that's, okay, right? But sometimes we say, no, this is what our religion is teaching us. It is sunnah, right? When we say it is sunnah, we have to be extra careful not to relate something that is not part of the sunnah to the tradition of Rasulullah. Why? Because this is haram. And it's not just a simple haram. It's a haram that, when we look at the Ravaya, there is this severe punishment for it. What do you think is the most severe of the punishments? In this case, it is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, for the person who innovates in religion, there is no chance of repentance. Meaning that person cannot do tawbah. Why is that? We thought Allah was Arhamur Rahimin. Yes, He is. But the act of innovation itself, it causes a stage in that person who's making that innovation that he or she would not be able to repent from it. Why? Because innovation is a practical way, right? So when I bring up something as a sunnah, as a fake sunnah, people are going to start following it for ages after ages, generation after generations after generation. So if I'm the originator of that innovation, if I repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and say, oh Allah, I'm sorry, is that going to stop everybody else from practicing what I already have distributed as the sunnah of the Prophet? Or they're just going to continue that for years and years and years to come? So I get all of those, misjudgment and misrelation between the fake sunnah and the true sunnah, as long as that sunnah is being practiced, right? So what are the examples of this one? I mentioned one of them during the Friday prayer. The second one is the topic that may not be so much relevant, I'll just give it as an example, is what we call as the Shahadatu Salisa. What is Shahadatu Salisa? In the salat, when we want to end the namaz, when we want to end the salat, what do we say? First we say the tashahhud, right? Then we do the salam. In the tashahhud, what do we recite? We say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, wahdahu la sharika la, wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh, right? Now in some communities, in some cultures, they tend to add the 3rd line here. And they continue, they say, Ashhadu anna Aliyan waliyullah. Some they add the 4th one, Ashhadu anna Fatimatu sayyidatu nisa'il alameen. Some add the 5th one, and they continue all the way to the Imam of time, right? So this is an example of bid'ah. Why is it bid'ah? Because we say the parts of salat is something that we have clear rivayah for them. We cannot add anything to the parts of salat. So here comes the question, if this is true, how come we recite Ashhadu anna Aliyan waliyullah in azan and iqamah, right? We do that every day, right? So when we do the azan and iqamah, we say Ashhadu anna Aliyan waliyullah, right? So how come it's permissible for azan and iqamah, but it's not permissible for the last tashahhud of the salat? We say there are 2 differences between these two. Number 1, the tashahhud is part of the salat. If you don't say the tashahhud, your namaz become batil, right? And if you change the tashahhud, your namaz becomes batil as well. But azan and iqamah is what? Is mustahab. So even if you don't recite azan and iqama, your salat is correct. That's number one. Number two, we say because it's an act of mustahab, we have the right to actually mention what is the slogan of the Shia school of thought. The motto, that flag of Shia school of thought is what? Ashhadu anna aliyan waliyullah. So that's why when you look at the scholars, you can go and look at every risala. They mention this specifically, that when you recite azan and iqama, when you come to the phrase of Ashhadu anna aliyan waliyullah, don't say it as part of the azan, but say it as a mustahab act, meaning as something that we are adding to it for the purpose of gaining the rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning it is not part of the original sunnah as we speak of. So this is just one example of the bid'ah, right? Now you can find this in many, many different regards. So let's go back to the time of Abu Abdullah Hussein, right? We're talking about the root causes, right? Why did Imam Hosain rose against Yazid of his time? One of the reasons he mentions is about the topic of bid'ah. But the bid'ah which Yazid was distributing at that time was not as easy as, mentioning the tashahhud. No. He had changed the religion completely to the stage that he had become completely like an upside down version of the religion, right? And interesting, people were silent about it. People were not making any objections regarding to it. Why? Go back in the riwayah. There is an interesting riwayah from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. In which he says, in a society, three groups of people have absolutely no honor and no respect. Who are those three people? ثلاثة ليس لهم حرمة صاحب حوى مبتدع والإمام الجائر والفاسق المعلن بفسقه. Three types of people in a society have absolutely no honor, no respect. To the point that they say, even if you do a ghibat of them, if you backbite, behind their back, that's actually halal. So who are these three types of people? Number one, صاحب حوى مبتدع, the one who does innovation in religion. He makes up this stuff that he relates it to the religion, right? He brings up this stuff from his own and he calls it the sunnah of Rasulullah. He comes up with this interpretation of the Quran and he calls it the true meaning of the Quran, right? Number two, Imam al-Jair, the leader who is oppressive, the leader who does zulm, the leader who is cruel and who is oppressive. وَالْفَاسِقُ الْمُعْلِنُ بِفِسْقِهِ. And the person, a sinner, right, who does sinning in the public. He doesn't feel shameful about it. He goes and he drinks out in the public. He goes and steals in the public. He lies in the public, right? He commits different acts of sinful act in the public, and he has absolutely no shame about it. Now, let's take a look at the character of Yazid of his time, right? Now, interesting, this report comes from who? Comes from one of the people who actually said no to Abu Abdullah Hussein when Imam Hosain told him to join us in uprising against Yazid. So what happens? Let me just give you a brief history of what happens. As Imam Hosain goes to Karbala, when the tragedy of Karbala takes place and all of this stuff happens, then little by little, those people who were the elite member of the society, they start questioning the acts of Yazid. Meaning before that, they absolutely had no idea who Yazid is in a sense, right? So he actually goes to Sham, he goes to Syria, right? And he goes and he spends a couple of days at Yazid's palace. When he comes back to Medina, that's when he gives a report. He summons all the Muslims in Medina and says, "Oh, dear brothers, if we die tonight, it's still the mercy of Allah. If we sleep and we do not wake up, that's because of our actions. Why? Because we have a ruler such as Yazid who's ruling us." Then he mentions the reason. Interesting. He doesn't say because he killed the grandson of the Prophet. He doesn't say because he gave thirst to the grandson of the Prophet. No, he says because Yazid is da'imul khamr. He's the one who's constantly drinking out in the public. And then he continues, he says, I offered salat behind him and he was drunk during the salat. That was the salat of afternoon, the salat al-asr. And I waited there till salat al-maghrib and still he was drunken during the salat al-maghrib. He's constantly drinking to the stage that he is absolutely drunken at the time of salat. He is not the person who's worthy of being our leader, right? So look at the line, right? This was the topic of Yazid, and when did Abu Abdullah al-Hussein said this? Way before all of this, when he was about to be forced for the bay'ah. So the question comes here, if they know about Yazid, how come they didn't join the side of Imam al-Hussein, right? So we have to go back a little bit more. When we look, at why a lot of people didn't join Imam al-Hussein, we see there was this set of fear among all of the elites of the society. And where was this fear coming from? Was it coming from Yazid? The answer is no. It was coming from the time of Muawiyah. When we go back in history of time, it's interesting. Muawiyah did a lot of, you can say, tactful, acts in order to guarantee his son Yazid taking over the Khilafah. One of the tactful, actions he did, it was actually he started threatening all of those who were potential for the Khilafah after him, right? So he started, killing a lot of them out in the secret. So it was like he would bribe them. If they would not take the bribe, he would plan for their assassination. So there was this whole, sense of fear among the elites that if they do not go by the bay'ah of Yazid, sooner or later they will be dead. Or sooner or later their share from Baytul Mal, from public treasury, will be cut off. Sooner or later they will be boycotted to the extent that nobody will even care for them. So it comes a decision between dunya and akhirah, right? It's like, okay, if I don't do this bay'ah, I'm going to lose everything that I have worked for, right? And a lot of times, it's not that easy to give that up. Remember the example of Hur on the night before Ashura? How he was shivering, how he was shaking as he was, as he was saying that I'm walking the path between heaven and hell, right? So it's the same decision between choosing this worldly matters and the hereafter. So that root cause, one of the root cause which leads to the tragedies such as Karbala, is believing in the innovation that other people make, right? So all of those Muslims, they knew, for example, the ruling of drinking was haram. How come they were going by it and they were not saying anything? They knew, for example, attacking women and children is haram in Islam. How come they attacked the Qiyam of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein? They knew, for example, cutting to pieces of a Muslim body is haram in Islam. How come they still went for it, right? If they wanted to kill Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, they could have done it easily. Why they had to be so severe about it? Why did they had to make a big deal out of it, right? Not only Imam Hussein, but the companions, right? This separation of the head from the body and running the horses on the bodies of the shuhada. We know that all of this is haram acts in the religion of Islam. So why did they do it? Goes back to a very common principle. Remember the bid'ah? Where does this bid'ah finds its justification? When we say the person in charge of religion, that Khalifa of the time, has authority to change the Sharia. There is a difference of a school of thought. We say no. When the person becomes the Imam, that Imam gives us the religion as is. He doesn't add anything to it. He doesn't take anything from it. He gives us the true message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why we call him Ma'soom, right? He doesn't commit any mistake in conveying the message. Versus if it's anybody else beside the Imam takes the position of Khilafah, what is going to happen? Of course, they don't know the religion as is. So what's going to happen? They're going to come up with all of this innovations. Every time they're going to find a challenging situation, they're going to just say whatever they think is right according to their understanding. Of course, Yazid wanted to show everybody that I am the man, I am the Khalifa of the time, I am the Amir al-Mu'mineen of the time. Everybody has to do bay'ah to me. Whoever doesn't want to do the bay'ah to me, I'm going to do as I have done with Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. So he gives the order to go against Imam al-Hussein in the most severe way. And of course, we know the other commanders of Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad and Shabr, they all have a part in this, movement of Karbala as well. They were all putting basically their share in getting a revenge from the Bani Hashim, right? So where does it all start? It goes back to the topic of bid'ah. Where does the bid'ah comes? When the person doesn't have knowledge of the religion and yet again takes on the position of an expert of the religion. So inshallah we can learn about this and we can be more thorough about all of the teachings that we gain for religion, from the lectures, from the members, from the teachers, right? And inshallah, we go to the primary source and like authentic sources. Not anything that we read online or on the social media is necessarily going to be true regarding a religion. No, we have to use our like intellect a little bit, right? We have to do our research. I'll give you an example. If you want to buy a new cell phone, right? If you want to buy a new car, if you want to buy a new laptop, right? How much of a research do you do, right? You list all of the different models, and then you look at all of the different comments, and you look all of the different reviews, right? In order to make the best out of the money, like, that you're going to put in for, like, purchasing something new. So how come when it comes to our religion, which is going to like shape our hereafter, it is going to shape our eternal existing, it is going to shape that our infinite time of living, right? We become so like, easy about it, meaning that we take the very first thing that we hear. Because usually when it comes to innovation, what is the primary justification? We say, oh, this is how our fathers used to do it, and this is how our grandparents used to do it. This is how our ancestors used to do it. This is how everybody else does it, right? So we take that as a justification for our own actions, and we tend to follow that trend. But Islam tells us otherwise. It says no, even if 99.9% of the people of the world, they go one direction, not necessarily means that we have to follow it, right? We have to see which way is haqq, follow the haqq despite of the situation, despite of the circumstance, and despite of the number of the people. So where does that lead us? We have to find these skills like within us. What is that skill? The skill of saying no. Sometimes it's hard to say no, especially when you're in a group. If you're in a group, if you're hanging out with your buddies, if you're hanging out with your pals, and all of a sudden they want to go to a specific place, right? They want to go to a restaurant, they want to go out drinking, they want to go out have fun, they want to go out like have a party, right? You get in a position in which you are being pushed by the peer pressure. If you do not know how to say no, what's going to happen? More likely we're going to accompany them. Little by little we're going to find ourselves acting like them. Little by little we're going to find ourselves behaving like them, right? Little by little we're going to find ourselves just being like them, right? That's some of the harms of like having bad friendships, right? So we have to work on ourselves in a way that we can actually say no to batil. Of course not no to haqq, right? But no to batil, inshallah. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq to actually benefit from this and gain the most ma'rifah, inshallah, from this night of Muharram. There is this famous story by one of the great scholars named Ibn Battuta. Who is he? He was actually from Syria. What was his job? He would travel to different countries, to different origins, and he would write down the specifics and characters of the people of that country or origin. He would talk about culture, he would talk about landscape, he would talk about geography, he would talk about customs, clothing, like everything within, that specific country. So one time he goes to Iran and he goes to the city named Saleh. And as he's like doing his stuff, he's doing his reporting, he finds out that a group of people, they are dressed up in a very respectful manner. So he gets interesting, he starts following them and he finds, where they gather, right? And he starts raising question. Who are these people? How come they're dressed up so neat? And how come, they're like, so like, good in terms of the personal hygienes, right? Is there something different about them? They say, that these people are called Jamaliya. He asks, what is Jamaliya? They say, those are the people who follow Sheikh Jamal. So he asks, who's Sheikh Jamal? They tell him the story. They say not many years ago, there was this sheikh living in the city. His name was Jamal, right? And he was a very good sheikh, meaning he was very good student in terms of knowing about religion. He was very pious, at the same time he was very good looking, right? So every day he would go from his home to to his school in order to gain the knowledge of religion and go back. He had nothing else to do with the society. Now what happens, one day as he's going from his home to his school, one of the neighbors on his path had already made this evil thoughts about this sheikh, right? So she's been planning this for quite a few days. On that day, she actually runs and executes her plan. How? She says, I want to get the sheikh somehow to my house without him knowing this, right? So what am I going to do? She pays a couple like dirhams to this old lady, and she tells him to go out as the sheikh is passing by, give him this letter, and tell him that you have to recite this letter for me. It's a letter handwritten by my son. Read it to me so I can understand it. But then my daughter is inside the home, so if you can come and stand in the hall of the house and read it out loud so both of us can hear it. So the poor sheikh is going to go, to his school. The old lady comes up to him, hands him the letter and says, if you can't read this for me, I don't know how to read. This is a letter from my son. The sheikh starts to read it. He's like, no, not like this. Come inside the hall and read it out loud because my daughter is inside and she wants to hear, what the letter says. Sheikh is simple-minded, right? So he goes in, right? The minute he goes in, that lady closes the door and says to Sheikh, if you make one extra move, I'm going to start screaming and I'm going to tell everybody that you were going to do, for example, this harmful, disrespectful act to me. Sheikh says, okay, I'm taslim. What do you want from me? She starts saying that for so many times I've been waiting for you and all the stuff that, they say. The Sheikh starts thinking he's a pious man. He says, okay, fine, no problem. I've been waiting for you too. But guess what? Every morning that I went to school, before starting my classes, I usually use the bathroom and I do wudu and I start my classes. If you have a bathroom, I'll just go and fresh up and then, I'll come downstairs. The lady says, fine, bathroom is on that side of the house. Go and take care of your business and then come back, right? Sheikh goes there in the bathroom. He starts talking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, for so many years, I have kept myself and I have kept myself pious. Now you put me in a situation in which I have no way out. So he starts thinking, like, what can I do? Then he remembers that he has a razor with him, the one that they used in the olden days to sharpen the pen that they would use for writing. He takes out the razor, and right there in the bathroom, he starts shaving all of his beard, all of his mustache, all of his hair, and all of his eyebrow. He turns to this scary, looking guy, and all bleeding, of course, with the razor. So he does that, and he comes out. He says, "Here I am. I'm at your service." The minute the lady looks at him, she gets frightened. So she starts screaming, saying, "Oh, get out of my house! I don't want to do anything with you. Get out!" And the story ends in what we call it a positive way. So from that moment on, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives him barakah in the words that he would speak to people, right? It would influence people almost you can say 100%. So a lot of people tend to follow his tradition and his footsteps. That's why you see them dressing up like him. Meaning when it comes to saying no, a lot of times it's easy for us to make a judgment. But when we are in that position, we have to be able to actually say no to that one. And saying no to the big challenges like this one starts from saying no to the small matters. Small matters such as haram music, small matters such as hanging out with the people where we may not have that much benefit for us, right? We always have to remember this one, that mu'min is kayyis, mu'min is smart. That doesn't mean he's a good businessman. No, it means it's always looking for what's going to be everlasting for him, right? Inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad. Let me tell you one more story, inshallah, and then I will try to wrap up the discussion for tonight. We all know this great companion of Rasulullah, Abu Zar al-Ghafari, right? So when it comes to him, there are so many, mashallah, great characters, right? In regarding to the same saying no act as we spoke about, there is this very interesting story about him. As we all know, his financial situation was not that good. He was known to be poor, right? But he was extremely loyal. Let me give you a story about his loyalty, and I'll talk about the main point. At the time of Rasulullah, when they were about to go out for a battle outside of the Medina, they had to walk for a couple of days, right? So because the journey was long, a lot of people would actually leave the side of Rasulullah and they would just, ditch the army and they would, run back in a way. Because it was getting more difficult and difficult as you continue to walk outside of the city of Medina. The sustenance becomes scarce, there is no water, there is no food, and it becomes more difficult. So at some point they spotted that Abu Zar takes his horse and he leaves the army of Rasulullah. He abandons the army. They immediately go to Rasulullah and says, "Hey, the great companion Abu Zar, he has left the army." So Rasulullah tells them, if there is any khair in Abu Zar, he's going to be with us. If there is no khair, he's not going to be with us. He says this, and the army continues its move. After one day, they spot out, they get to the place, and again, everybody's in a severe need of water. Still they look and they see this shadow coming out from the far, right? So they start looking at him, they see it's Abu Zar, but Abu Zar is on barefoot. The horse is not with him. They look closer, they see that he's bringing this, saddle of water with him, right? So they go closer to him and they find him in a state that he's almost about to die. The face is pale, the eyes have gone blackened, right? He barely has enough energy to walk, yet again he's carrying this saddle of water on his back. So they help him, they get from his underarm and they take him to the khiyam and they lay him down in the shadow, right? And when they look at him, they say that he's extremely thirsty. How is that possible? To bring the water and not drink from the water. So they tell Rasulullah that this is what happened. He tells them that, open up that, the bag of water and quench his thirst with the same water that he has brought for us. The minute they want to open the water, right, Abu Zar comes to life in a sense. And the minute he lays eyes on that water being open and being used for himself, he starts crying. And he says, "Oh Rasulullah, I brought this water from such a long place, from such a far place, just with this intention, with this hope, with this affection of getting this water to you. So how can I be the first one to quench my thirst while you're thirsty?" This is how loyal Abu Zar was to Rasulullah. So during the time of the third Khalifa, right, as you all know, Abu Zar had a lot of objections, especially when it came to the public treasury, right? So what happens, one time Osman tries to bring Abu Zar to his side. So what does he do? He sends two of his servants and he gives them 200 dirham. He says, take this 200 dirham, go to Abu Zar and make sure he gets this money from you. If he gets this money from you, I'm going to set you guys free, right? So they come with this intention, they have the money with them, they knock on the door, and it happened on that day that Abu Zar had run out of the money and he had no food inside of the house. So he asked, who is it? They say, we are the servants of the third Khalifa. What's your business? We have brought you a present. What's your present? We have brought you 200 dirham. And they say it with very sense of a proudness, right? So Abu Zar opens the door and says, did he give this money to everybody, or did he just send this money for me? The servant, they say, well, he only sent it for you. It's exclusive for you. You are the grand winner of, the third Khalifa's favorite. Abu Zar says, no, I don't want this money. They say, why? It's 200 dirham. With this one, you can buy a brand new house. You can get all of this stuff. You can get a new camel. You can get a new horse. You can get all the stuff that you want. Why don't you take the money? Because the servants, they wanted their freedom too, right? So they were trying to impose the money to Abu Zar in no matter what. Abu Zar keeps on rejecting and says, no, I don't want this one. If it was from the public treasury, it had to be distributed among everybody equally. Why is he making a favorite between me and other Muslims? They said, no, this is not from public treasury. This is from his own halal money. He had some savings. He took 200 dirham from his saving and he's giving it to you. Take it. He says, no, I don't want this one. Why? They say, why? He said, because I am the most richest person on planet Earth. The servants look inside the house, they don't find anything. There is no food, there is no clothes, there is no carpet, there is nothing. It's just a pure empty house. They say, how can you be the richest person in the world, yet again we cannot find a single object in your house? Abu Zar points to his own clothes and he says, you see this one? This is the bread that I'm going to be eating tonight. And by this clothes that I'm wearing, I'm the richest man in the world. Showing that when it comes to saying no, even if the person is at that stage that is in desperate need of something such as, for example, in this case, sustenance, a great companion of not only Rasulullah but Amir al-Mu'mineen, this is how he deals with the matter of the hereafter. So do we have the same thing in the companions of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein? Yes indeed, yes indeed. When we look at the companions of Imam Hosain, we see how much sacrifice they made in the path of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein and how much loyalty they showed to the path of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. There is this hikayah, very beautiful hikayah. It says one day the people of Medina, they spotted a deer who actually entered the city. The deer came to the city and it started maneuvering around the alleys of the Medina. It went from house to house to house. People started piling up after him, trying to watch where does the deer goes. They followed the deer. The deer came to this sort of a house, which was sort of like a wreckage house, and waited in front of the house. A couple of seconds later, Imam Zain al-Abidin came out of the house. The deer started speaking to Imam al-Sajjad in a tone that nobody could understand. Little bit after that one, Imam al-Sajjad followed the deer outside of the city of Medina. There was a house of a hunter on the border of Medina. Imam with the deer went to that house, and Imam started speaking to that hunter. He said, "Oh hunter, if you may, give us the baby of this deer and take this money from us." We have it in the Hikayah that Imam took some of the soil from the ground and he put the soil in the hand of the hunter. That soil became jewel in the hand of the hunter. The hunter accepted the deal and returned the baby deer to his mother. The minute the baby deer came to his mother, they started like embracing each other by putting their necks next to one another. They started looking at each other as if like they have been waiting and waiting to come back to one another. Let me just give a point here. Let's go to the day of Ashura. When Abu Abdullah al-Hussein was left all alone, he looked at his right, he looked at his left. No companions left, no Bani Hashim is left. He looks at the front, he sees all the people of the army of Umar Assad. He looks at the back, there are the khiyam of the women and the children. He looks at the skies and he says, "Hal min nasirin yansuruni? Hal min nasirin yansuruni?" Is there anybody who is going to help us on the path of Allah? Is there anybody who is going to help us against protecting the khiyam of women and children? We have it in the Maghatil when he says this, all of a sudden there is this sound coming from the khiyam of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. The women and children, they started crying so loud, but not in a sense of losing something, but in a sense of expressing their bay'ah to Imam al-Hussein. They're saying, if there is no man left in your army, O Abu Abdullah, we are here, we are going to express our bay'ah to you. Imam al-Hussein is ghayratullah. He goes back to the khiyam for the last farewell. He looks at all the women and children and he says, "Alaykum minni as-salam." This is my last salam to you, oh the women and children of Ahlul Bayt. Then they hear the cry of this infant. This little baby is crying so hard that nobody is able to keep him silent. They keep on passing him from one person to another person. Yet again the baby is still crying. Abu Abdullah al-Hussein looks at the little 6-month-old baby. He tells Lady Zainab, "Bring that little baby to me. Let me tell him one last farewell." Lady Zainab brings Ali and Al-Asghar to Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Imam al-Hussein is looking at Ali and Al-Asghar. How much of the cuteness you can see in Ali and Al-Asghar. But they say Ali and Al-Asghar was so weak that he could barely lift his eyes up. His eyes was turning white. He was so weak that he would cry, but there would be no voice. He was so weak that his lips was actually became so dry that the lips was just moving like the way that a fish moves its lips when it's out of the water for such a long time. Imam al-Hussein looks at Ali al-Asghar and is looking at him and saying, "How can this happen to my 6-month-old baby?" There are different maghatil, there are different reports. The one that Ibn Tawus narrates as he's looking at Ali al-Asghar, what would a father do on the last farewell when he wants to go on a journey? He gives a last kiss to the cheeks of the children that he has at home. Imam al-Hussein leans down to give one last kiss to Ali al-Asghar. That Mal'oon is standing there and he's looking at the scene. He calls up Harmala. He says, "Oh Harmala, what are you waiting for? Take your bow, take your arrow. Don't you see what Imam al-Hussein is doing?" Harmala goes, he picks up the bow, he picks up the arrow. He says, "Oh Umar Assad, which one should I aim for? Should I go for the father or should I go for the son?" Umar Assad says, "Don't you see the white spot on the neck of the son? Aim for the son. That's the heart of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein." He pulls back the arrow. He aims the three-sided, the three-headed arrow. What would that do with the neck of a 6-month-old infant? He releases the arrow. Imam al-Hussein is leaning to kiss kisses Ali al-Asghar one last kiss for goodbye. They say before Imam's lips actually reaches the face of Ali al-Asghar, all of a sudden Imam's face gets covered with the blood of Ali al-Asghar. Imam al-Hussein opens his eyes and he says, Ali al-Asghar, they're drowned in his own blood. We have it in a maqatal. He takes his hand, he fills it up with blood of Ali al-Asghar. He throws it at the sky. Imam al-Baqir says, not a single drop of that blood came back to earth. Imam looks at Ali al-Asghar and he starts praying, oh Allah, you see what they have done to me. Oh Allah, remove the mercy from this nation. Remove your rain from this nation. Let them die in wreckage and let them die in lack of all the bounties. He's looking at Ali al-Asghar. Some of the maqatil said that the head of Ali al-Asghar was hanging by the skin, and Imam al-Hussein doesn't know how can he take it back, to the khiyam of the Ahl al-Bayt. They say it's one of the most difficult things to take the news of losing his son back to his mother. So what does Imam does, the Mazloom Imam? He goes on the back side of the khiyam. As he leans down, he takes his sword. He starts digging the ground with this small grave. The minute he wants to lay down Ali al-Asghar on that grave, there comes this sound, Mahlan Mahla, Ya Aba Abdullah, Mahlan Mahla, just wait a little bit more, oh Imam al-Hussein. Let me say my farewell, let me say my goodbye to my little boy one more time. There comes Rabab, Ya Allah. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون وسيعلم الذين ظلموا وأي منقلب ينقلبون. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر اللهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. One more time. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب اللهم إنا نسألك وندعوك باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم. إلهي بحق محمد وعلي وفاطمة والحسن والحسين وتسعة المعصومين من ذرية الحسين. يا الله 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 يا رحمن يا رحيم يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك واكفنا يا قاضي الحاجات يا راشق المهمات إنك على كل شيء قدير. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج والعافية والناس واجعلنا من عوانه وأنصاره وشيعته. اللهم اشف مرضانا وارحم أمواتنا واجعل عاقبة الأمور خيرا. O Allah, hasten the appearance of Imam of Time. O Allah, put our name among his true companions. O Allah, forgive all of our past sins. O Allah, forgive all of our past ones. O Allah, accept this majalis from us and put our name among true mourners of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Oh Allah, give us the tawfiq and the ziyarat of Abu Abdullah Hussein in this dunya and his shafa'a in the hereafter. Oh Allah, protect our future generations. Oh Allah, cure all of our sick ones and diseased ones. Oh Allah, remove all the difficulties from mu'mineen and mu'minat around the world. Rahimallah man qara'a al-Fatiha ma'a salawat.
بگیر و دعا کن که مادرت بمیره، که مادرت بمیره. علی خواب ندارد، پدر آب ندارد. علی خواب ندارد، پدر آب ندارد. خدا مادر بیشیر به گرتاب ندارد، به گرتاب ندارد. علی جان، علی جان، علی جان، علی جان، علی جان، علی جان. من علی اصغرم غنچه گلزاره، من علی اصغرم غنچه گلزاره. طفل شش ماهه‌ام ولی مدد داره، طفل شش ماهه‌ام ولی مدد داره. این منو منم، این منو خنجرم، هدیه بردارم با غریبا، با شهیدا، با غریبا، با شهیدا. من علی اصغرم غنچه گلزاره، من علی اصغرم غنچه گلزاره. طفل شش ماهه‌ام ولی مدد داره، طفل شش ماهه‌ام ولی مدد داره. این منو خنجرم، این منو خنجرم، هدیه بردارم با غریبا، با شهیدا، با غریبا، با شهیدا. گرچه سوز آتش درود تابوتم، گرچه سوز آتش درود تابوتم. عشق چشم پدر چکیده روی لبم، عشق چشم پدر چکیده روی لبم. میکنم جان فدا، میکنم جان فدا، بهر دین خدا، با غریبا، با شهیدا، با غریبا، با شهیدا، با غریبا، با شهیدا، با غریبا، با شهیدا. شیرخوارم ولی عاشق سربازیم، شیرخوارم ولی عاشق سربازیم. تشنه لبم فدا شود سرافرازیم، تشنه لبم فدا شود سرافرازیم. بهر پیکانگی، بهر پیکانگی، التهابم ببین با غریبا، با شهیدا، با غریبا، با شهیدا، با غریبا، با شهیدا. ای پدر جان بکش جان سر من از وفا، ای پدر جان بکش از سر من جان وفا. بر در مادرم تو از محبت رها، تا نبینم چنین، تا نبینم چنین فرق شدم از این غریبا شهیدا غریبا شهیدا علی اصغرم گنچه گلزاره من علی اصغرم گنچه گلزاره طفل چشمانم ولی مددکاره طفل چشمانم ولی مددکاره این منو خنجرم این منو خنجرم هدیه بر دادنم با غریبا با شهیدا با غریبا با شهیدا شیر خواهم ولی عاشق سربازیم شیر خواهم ولی عاشق سربازیم تشنه لبم فدا شوم سرت بازیم تشنه لبم فدا شوم سرت بازیم بهر پیکانگی بهر پیکانگی التهابم بگی با غریبا با شهیدا با غریبا با شهیدا با غریبا با شهیدا با غریبا با شهیدا
محمد و آل محمد صلوات علی اصغرم بیتابی چرام و در نمیخوابی گمانم تشنگی آبی گمانم تشنگی آبی علی حسن لالا 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 چنین مادر مکن زاری چنین مادر مکن زاری چه شور استی بسر داری مگر مرد سفر داری مگر مرد سفر داری علی اصغرم لای لای علی اصغرم لای لای علی اصغرم لای لای مزن آتش به جان من مزن آتش به جان من مبر سر و توان من ببینش که روان من ببینش که روان من علی اصغرم لای لای علی اصغرم لای لای علی اصغرم لای لای علی اصغرم لای لای علی ای راحت جانم علی ای راحت جانم علی ای روح ریحانم علی علی ای جان جانانم علی ای جان جانانم علی اصغرم لای لای علی اصغرم لای لای علی اصغرم لای لای علی اصغرم لای لای علی اصغرم لای لای
محمد و آل محمد کروان
مرا یک دم ساروان اشتر ناقه زینب رفتن در گل مرا یک دم ساروان اشتر ناقه زینب رفتن در گل بده ظالم مهلتی آخر زان که من دارم اخته ها در دل مرا یک دم مرا یک دم سارقان اشتر ناخه زینب رفتن در گل مرا یک دم سارقان اشتر مرا ناخت تا که بنشینم مرا ناخت تا
بر سر نقش شاه مظلومان مرا ناخزا